What is going on, ladies and gentlemen of the internet? Hyper Chaotic here with a K, double R. And today, guys, I wanted to talk about a specific topic today because, well, let me just start off by saying I'm pretty sure we're all aware of the infamous debate of PC versus console. Now, we're not even going to go deeper into console wars like console versus consoles, but we're just talking about PC versus console. And the reason why I want to bring up the infamous debate of PC versus console, and it's not because I want to argue which side I'm on. Now, I have experience with both. Console more than PC, mainly because, I mean, for the obvious factor that is probably always mentioned in the infamous debate for a console, which is that it's cheaper than getting a PC. Yes, I know getting a PC over the long run may be cheaper because you don't pay for the fucking online. Yada yada. I get it. You only pay for the internet. I know. I've actually owned a PC for a little bit. Unfortunately, I went a bit too cheap on it. That was a mistake I made. But nevertheless, I could definitely say, for the time being, while it lasted, I definitely got a lot out of it. A lot more than even what I got out of a lot of my consoles, for the most part. But again, I'm just stating that I recognize the arguments for both sides. I can see the arguments for both sides. I have pretty much been on both sides at one point in time, for console, for PC, and now I'm just more of in the middle. I'm a bit of a fence sitter right now, and the reason why is because, well, anybody who's unbiased in this situation or can't really choose a side, there are benefits to both PC and console. What benefits are right for you? Really, just, well, it depends on you. What's better on console for you may be better for somebody else on PC, you know? But that's not what I want to talk about. I just want to make that very clear what my point of view is on that. What I really want to mention is how, when it comes to the infamous debate of PC versus console, when do mods play a part in this occasion, in this argument? And the reason why I ask that is because when I really think about it, now I'm pretty sure there's still plenty of people out there, I'm pretty sure, who argue about it till this day and will die on the hill that they stand on, whichever side they're on. But whatever the case may be, it's not as, how can I put this? Fired up and popular to talk about nowadays as it was back when I want to say when the Xbox One had just dropped, when it was starting to die down a little bit more. It didn't die down completely. It didn't die down right away. But it did die down. But it did die down eventually. Again, now, although there are people out there that may or may not still argue about that debate till this day, they're few and far in between, especially even when it comes to video essay formats on YouTube. By the way, hello, BitChute. I don't know how often people argue about that on BitChute. But nevertheless, when it comes to social media and, well, video platforms, because some people still debate whether or not YouTube and, in some cases, BitChute even are still considered social media, but okay. We might discuss that one day, but that's not going to be today. But you got to really look for it if you want to find people who are still talking about it, whether it's on social media or on video platforms such as YouTube and BitChute. Unless your algorithm's already tainted in a way to where that shit's going to be on your homepage regardless. But from all the times, and mind you, I'm just mainly speaking from my personal opinion and perspective. I can't really speak for anybody else when I say this, but anytime I had ever seen or heard about the debates, and the both sides that people would give for their side, and reason why, which one is better than the other, uh, through tweets, posts, videos, the comment section, you name it. I've heard everybody argue everything from specs to price to to parts, whether or not they can be replaced or not. Which, let's put a pin on that, mind you. To freaking what else? Everything, pretty much everything. You name it. They'll argue every little detail about how this one's better than that one, as far as PC versus console. But from my experience, from my personal search, I've I wouldn't even say very rarely actually. I have never, ever, ever seen or heard anybody ever bring up mods into the argument when it comes to the infamous debate of PC versus console. There have been a few times where I have made a comment mentioning how, why people don't mention it. And there have been people who agree with me that, like, oh, yeah, that's interesting. You know what? You're right. People don't ever bring up mods. But I very rarely ever see people, like I said, if somebody else does mention it, it seems people will agree with you and notice that. But nobody seems to be aware of the fact that when it comes to this debate, at least from what I've seen, that people ever even bring up mods into the discussion. And sometimes I just wonder why. When it comes to the infamous debate of PC versus console and arguing each perspective on each side, and mind you, earlier, like I said, let's put a pin on the part where I said you could switch out your PC parts for better parts and upgrade it over time, versus you can't really do that with an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Nintendo Switch. Or, this is one of the most infamous points that people bring up when it comes to PC versus console and for PC. But they don't ever bring up mods. And to anybody of you out there who ends up seeing this, if you're still arguing the infamous PC versus console debate, and if you're on the side of PC, I want to ask you, how often do you ever bring up mods into the discussion? Like, I'm just genuinely curious if you ever have. And for those of you who are on the side of consoles and you're debating with somebody who's for PC, how often do you hear people who are for PC bringing up mods into the discussion? Because again, I can't speak for all of you out there. Now, a lot of you out there may have heard people, or personally yourself had brought mods into the debate. But my thing is, it's just I don't really hear it often, if at all. Actually, at all, like I said, and I don't understand why. People will literally argue every single bullet point, every single part, every single perspective, spec, feature, and everything. And even bring up the fact that in the case of PC, you can replace parts, you can fix things up, you can even mess with the software a little bit. Don't mention you can even mess with the software, but nobody ever specifically mentions mods. Because yes, mods are a way to mess around with the software, but there are different forms of messing around with the software other than just modifications. But why isn't mods ever brought up into the discussion at all when it's discussed? Again, from my personal perspective, I have never seen it happen. Now, if any of you out there have, let me know in the comments down below how the situation, how the discussion went. But for me personally, I never see anybody or hear anybody ever bring up mods into the discussion ever. And it intrigues me because you're gonna argue everything but mods. We're just gonna ignore those exist. One of the best ways to improve a game and have more fun with a game you've bought. And not only that, probably one of the best arguments to use if you're on the side of PC, trying to argue which one's better. And although, in my opinion, again, like I said, I see, pros and cons to both sides. But also, again, given that I have experienced both, one of the biggest, and I mean the biggest benefits, in my opinion, to a PC always has been mods. All this shit you can do to a game when you find the right mod, assuming you don't make it yourself. I mean, and think of how many games out there that have specific ways to be mod, whether it's changing up the gameplay, uh, you know, changing the game mechanics, adding or taking away weapons, um, tweaking the enemies, making your own custom map. Like for Call of Duty Zombies, for example, how the zombies community on PC, go on YouTube and find out all the fucking maps anybody has ever created for that game alone. It's insane. And never mind any other added mods part of that specific map, such as weapons and whatnot, skins for of the zombies and of the setting, depending on the setting of the map. You can do so many great shit with mods. Mods are such a great thing to do on PC when it comes to gaming on PC. But when it comes to the infamous debate of PC versus console, from my personal perspective and opinion, it's never brought up. And I don't understand why. Well, first of all, we don't even need to be arguing this in the first place, because, like I said, there are pros and cons to both. But second of all, if we're gonna be arguing about every detail and feature and perspective of each side, why are we not literally bringing up every feature, detail, and perspective? Like the fact on PC, you can do mods. You can't really do that on console. I mean, there are ways to do it and get around it, but if you get caught doing it by Xbox or PlayStation, your ass is grass. It doesn't matter if the devs of the game itself don't mind it. On PC, that's open. That's free, open roaming. You can do whatever the fuck you want on your PC, but on a console, no. The software can't do it, chief. You can't do it. And even then, for the ways around it, those mods usually they're just most mods out there that exist for consoles are typically cheats. I mean, there are game improvement mods out there that exist, but at least from what I've seen out there, they're few and far between. Most mods nowadays are made by PCs for PC games, because it's hard to get them to work on an Xbox. And most quote unquote mods that do exist for console are usually cheats. And I have experimented once before with cheats on console. I was using it for Call of Duty World War Zombies. A buddy of mine had downloaded some hacks and he wanted to try them out. He was able to use it on the campaign. He tested it out there, and then he ended up tweaking it so it would work on the zombies, which he ended up showing me how to do later so I could just fuck around with it, which it was a lot of fun. And then later on, he did find out how to do it in the multiplayer, and he tried it like a few times, but afterwards he pretty much got bored of it, because when you basically have God mode on, fighting against people in online, I mean, it's going to get very, very tedious and the same shit over and over again. Unless you're like one of those people that just love to ruin somebody's day. For me and him, I've tried. Well, I haven't done it personally. I've done it through his PC after he had it set up. One of the times he tried it out, I did try the hacks on the multiplayer. It was fun at first, but afterwards it just got very boring for me. I prefer to play an actual regular match than play a match with hacks. A co-op type game, that's a different story. But actually, PvP multiplayer, nah. The only modifications that should ever be, well, I mean, anything that'll actually improve the gameplay or change it up and like add a new mode or something like that. Something to actually make it more fun. But, you know, nothing that where you can straight up cheat. Uh, Nevertheless, that's just what I wanted to say. And I just really wanted to bring that up. I really wanted to talk about that because for the freaking longest, whenever I've heard about this debate, mods are never, ever, ever brought up, and I still don't understand why. People will cover everything on the fucking list on the list except mods. I mean, but whatever the case may be, there there's pros and cons to both of them, and at the end of the day, I enjoy gaming. What matters to me is that the game fucking works. But again, if I could get myself a gaming PC again, I would love to. Just for the fact that mods. Fucking mods. There's so many games out there with very specific mods. I fucking wish I could put them on my Xbox because I cannot afford a gaming PC anytime soon. Not even a $600. So what do you guys think? What is your opinion? Uh, I mean, I don't really care too much about PC versus console. If you guys want to debate that, go for it. I'm just curious as to what's your opinion on bringing mods into the infamous debate, and how often has it ever been brought up into your discussion, or have you yourself ever brought it up in the discussion? Because when it comes to PC versus console, I don't really ever hear anybody at all bring it up. When I bring it up, I've had people agree with me and mention how, yeah, interesting. Nobody ever mentions that, and why. If you guys have any idea, let me know in the comments down below. And again, let me know. Have you ever brought it up in the infamous discussion, or has somebody else brought it up to you? With that said, I'm gonna get going. This is gonna be the end of the video. For those of you on YouTube, I don't know how the hell you got here, but thank you nonetheless. Well, actually, what am I saying? I know how you got here. PC versus console. That's how you got here. Because some of y'all want to just argue about the infamous debate. For those of you on BitChute, thank y'all so much. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. I mean, you get the cliche by now. Let me know your opinions down below. Why don't people ever mention mods? Chaotic out.